Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. It's warming up in Western New York. It's a whole 30 degrees right now. Yippee!
45 here, not bad.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 60 on Wednesday, Russ, but of course, that it probably be accompanied by cumulonimbus thunderclouds or whatever.
Not here. Yeah, I'm lucky. Not here. We're going to get 60s for the next few days, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right, start us off with the pre-show.
So let's talk about the 50th anniversary of Ali Frazier 1. Really, I think the best fight I've ever seen in my life. I do think it's one of the top 3 ever in the history of the sport. You had the first time heavyweights undefeated facing each other. That never happened. I'm not going to get political. I mean, did Ali deserve to lose that many years of his career? No, he did not. That's all I will say. And I'm a Joe Frazier fan. So if I'm saying that, I feel like it's really a raw deal. But at the end of the day, this fight stands on its own, man. If you watch it, and if people want to go to sportsology.com and read about it, that's great. If you do want to go to sportsology.com and go on to the live auction for The Legacy Exists, which is Joe Frazier's daughter's, Weta Frazier's 501(c) in memory of her dad, then please do, because they're looking to raise money for scholarships for at-risk kids in Philly.
That's a nonprofit designation.
It's a nonprofit, yes. And so, and really, all the money goes there except, expenses.
Operating costs.
Operating expenses. So they really are good with that. Weta actually works full-time, even though she does this. So she does this in her spare time to honor her dad, right? But anyhow, getting back to the fight, there's 3 things that always came to mind about an Ali fight. Was he a great fighter? Sure. Did he cheat? Yes. And the 2 things he would always do to opponents and get away with a lot. The first one is leaning on the back of the neck. I can't tell you how many times in that first fight he would be in the corner and pushing down on Frazier's neck towards the end of rounds in an attempt to tire him out. He would do this his whole career. That was one thing that always annoyed me. And then the rabbit punches. Ali would always do the rabbit punches, and honestly, how many points did he ever lose in his career for doing them? Those are the 2 things that really always bugged me. Was he a tremendous fighter? Yes. Rope-a-dope was effective. And honestly, I didn't realize it because, look, I was 8 when I saw the first fight, really 7 going on 8. He was doing rope-a-dope in that first fight because, again, he probably wasn't in the best shape of his life because he had that layoff, and Frazier was hurting him at times, and he was trying to outlast Frazier and outpoint him.
He had one warm-up fight going into that fight, and it was I think it was Oscar Bonavena or something like that. So I mean, you could say, but I mean, he had 3 years off, and he should have been training. Maybe, but he knew he was gonna be able to come back. So I think he had enough time to get back into shape.
He did. I mean, there's no excuses.
It did cost him the prime years of his career, but to the cheating thing, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. If you watch the documentary on I'm drawing a blank, who the heavyweight champion that he beat twice to get the title.
Well, I mean, there's Foreman. There's
no. Back in
Sonny Liston.
Sonny Liston, thank you. There was a documentary on Sonny Liston. There is some speculation that the second fight, which there was a supposed phantom punch that knocked.
Really looked like it never looked like it connected.
Right, and basically there was speculation that Liston, through the promoters, was going to get part of Ali's future purses, and that was probably going to be more money that he made that if he had won the championship back himself. So, a lot of stuff like that. So
he likes the bike on the extended view here because a lot of times I cut it off. But
okay, we'll expand it so you don't have to see your bike here. So there you go. Sorry, Timothy. But anybody who wants to watch the fight, or at least most of it, the HBO documentary is on YouTube,
and that's great.
If you can just search Ali Frazier 1, it's on there. I couldn't find it on HBO Max, but it's on.
Guess they didn't bother.
But that being said, okay, I think it's probably one of the 2 or 3 best fights I ever watched. I would say Hagler-Hearns.
That was really good.
The 3 round. I mean, that was only 3 rounds.
Yeah.
So that one, and probably, even though I hated the outcome, Leonard Hagler.
Yeah, I felt like Hagler got really burned on.
He got jobbed.
He did get jobbed. Sugar Ray was a great boxer, but much like Ali, would get a lot of favoritism with points and style, and I felt like that was an issue. But a few other things with the Frazier fight, with this one, $5 million purse. Like, you got to remember, $5 million back in 1971 was a lot of money. Like they pointed out, Joe Namath was making $250,000, which was a lot of money.
Yes,
in 1971. But that was what the purse was, and I don't remember what the split was. They did
2.5 million each.
So it's 2.5 each. They did say that Frazier was the slight favorite, but in honesty, most people were expecting Ali to win. So maybe they just did that in Vegas to balance the line. You know what I mean?
I think that was the anti-Ali bet. The documentary points it out that Frazier was definitely like the white pro-war boxer. All the ones who hated Ali because they considered him a draft dodger were rooting for Frazier, and then of course heavily African American anti-war were rooting for Ali, and then of course after Frazier wins, then all the pro-war people, they just say, okay, you did what we wanted you to do now, and you beat Ali, now screw you. It's like that. Yeah, let's just say that fight was a lot more interesting to watch than what I was on TV when I was watching on TV last night. I was flipping through the channels and watching Queen Latifah bang a boxing bag in the first 5 minutes of The Equalizer. This show is
wearing 3-ounce gloves, Mike. What was she wearing?
I don't know, and I don't care. It's just This show is an abomination. It's like let's just cater to every. Oh God, it's horrible. Edward Woodward is rolling over in his grave watching this show.
I don't know how you could possibly ruin The Equalizer, but I guess they have.
Well, Denzel Washington did a great job. I loved those 2 movies. They were great.
Downtown 27 wants to know how they get Off the Post. Just go to SoundCloud and search Off the Post, or even on Alexa.
Click on my blog. The latest Off the Post is there, and if you click Russ's name, it'll give you the last few Off the Posts.
And you can check out the Two Masked Men podcast that debuted last night.
Yes, sure you can.
What did you think about that, Mike? It was a little bit of Leaf talk we had there at the rink.
It wasn't bad. He's Michael McDonald, not the yacht rock.
Oh, you ruined it. Now I'm going to get less clicks on it.
Jesus. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, March 8th, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. I was trying to think of a Michael McDonald joke like "Sweet Freedom" or was it "Yamo Be There"?
One of the worst songs ever made in the history of music.
All the good stuff he did with the Doobie Brothers and solo, that was all
gone. Who cares?
It was all wasted because of that song.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with the big news of the weekend, which is the Tom Wilson incident and the 7-game suspension of said goon, Mr. Wilson. I have to say, I don't get some of the critique that was out there for the hit. To me, it was a blatant predatory hit. I don't care if he leaves his feet. I don't care if the first point of contact was the tip of his shoulder, meaning Carlo. Yeah. I don't care if Brendan Carlo's 6'5". He was slumped over. Wilson hit him at full force, and he hit him in the head, smushing his head against the glass. And Carlo grabs his head and goes to the ice as Vrana is cross-checking him to the ice.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that people sort of forget, and that secondary cross-check was really bad too. Yeah. I think what people forget is you don't have to leave your feet. I know everybody likes to point that out. Hey, he left his feet. Yes, sometimes that happens. Most times it happens, but it doesn't matter if it happens. The fact that he took 4 strides from an area that there was no reason for him to even go into the corner for is all you needed to know. Now, did the NHL get him by the letter of the law? No. But did Tom Wilson get what he deserved? Yes. So in the end, this was like frontier justice. If you're going to hide behind the rule book like some people in the media did and say, well, this isn't Rule 48, then screw you. Because you know what? In the end, it was a predatory hit. And the NHL decided to set a precedent, and I give them credit for that. And look, for all the heat that the Department of Safety takes, I think they did a good job here, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, okay. There are some people who think that 7 games was ridiculously over penalized. There's some people who think 7 games was not enough. That usually
It's a short season. Let's start there.
Right. So seven games for a 56 game schedule is 1/8 of the schedule, which is the equivalent of 10 games in a full 82. The thing is that, I mean, I think that's fair, but the problem here is, and I didn't know this until I heard it this morning, that, his last suspension was more than 18 months. So he's basically got a clean slate now. He's not right. He's not considered a repeat offender. This guy is a recidivist bum. He does not learn his lessons. It's like, okay, Tom, you can't do that stuff anymore. Okay, no problem. And he goes out and does it again.
I won't call him a bum because he can play the game. He can score goals.
There's no doubt.
But he chooses to go down this road, and it's a shame. There are some guys that only could do this road, right? And he's not one of them. But in the end, it's one of these things where it's like, you know what? We're all getting a little tired of it. Maybe Caps fans aren't, and maybe his teammates aren't, but the rest of the league is. And I think the Department of Player Safety is starting to as well.
And I just heard, and believe me, I'm not a former NHLer, and Anthony Stewart is, so he's more entitled to his point of view than I am. But he basically says, well, Trent Frederick went after Alex Ovechkin, so that means all everything is off, everything is fair, whatever. Okay, then you know what? Then hit Trent Frederick. Don't hit. What did Brandon Carlo have to do?
Well, my answer to Ovi and to Anthony Stewart would be, then let Ovi drop the gloves and fight instead of using his stick.
Well, he's a star player, so he should get star treatment. No. See, that's the thing. That's the thing I don't understand. It's like I really hate. It just seems like nowadays. And okay, this isn't anything new. If you remember, there was a player. I think his name was Dan Hodgson, who played for the Leafs.
I wonder if he's Cody's dad or a relation.
No. I may have the name wrong, but But early in Gretzky's career, I think it was Bill. It was Bill. It may have been Bill McCreary. It was not
Bill McCreary. Okay,
not the referee, but a player named Bill McCreary.
A player. Okay.
So he hit Gretzky at center ice, clean open ice hit. I don't think he ever played again. They basically was like, don't touch Wayne. He's the super, And then they had Semenko with him, so nobody would touch him. But there's always that protected class, and I cannot stand it. They're out there. Let them protect themselves. Gilbert Perreault was a star player in Buffalo. He fought Dan Maloney. He fought Brian Watson. He beat them both. Nobody messed with him again.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Gretzky had to fight his own battles.
But I agree with your point. And I think it's fair to say that. I do. And so whatever. I mean, Wilson's out. Let's talk about that Flyers game where Wilson was out. And I think Flyers fans were feeling pretty good about it. Hey, Tom Wilson's going to miss this 3-game series. Well, they didn't need Tom Wilson. Actually, the game was 1-0 for a while. But when Alexander Ovechkin scored what you would call like a backdoor goal, like the backdoor play in the NBA, I knew things were going to get bad after that. Bad for the Flyers because I could feel their legs stopping to move. They were playing off their back, back on a back-to-back. And what is most vulnerable on that team if they're a little tired? It's their defense.
Yes.
And after 2 periods, and look, Alain Vigneault doesn't have an easy job because he is trying to keep Shane Gostisbehere on the top pairing just because he could skate. Really not many other reasons other than he's 2 out of 3 in block D or 3 out of 3 blocking empty net goals, if you want to count that. He's been good at that. But at the end of the day, after 2 periods, Justin Braun had over 13 minutes of ice time. I don't even know what he ended at, but I knew it was too much then, and I flagged it, and I was like, listen, if you're going into the 3rd period of a game, which I think at the time was still 1-1, you are asking for trouble because you know that you're going to rely on Justin Braun. And I get it. He played some penalty kill, and that's what he does. But you know what? You've got to adjust minutes on guys like that. And so in the end, the Flyers lose that game 3-1. And trust me, the Capitals missed like 4 empty nets. Ovechkin missed 2 complete empty nets. Like, You just couldn't believe that he would miss them like that. And if they were all missing him, right? And Carter Hart gave up one bad goal. There's no question about it. And that does happen. But in this game, it was going to be tight. And Ilya Samsonov played like you would expect him to play now that he is probably completely healthy or feeling better since the COVID, since the ATV accident. And he was tremendous. Now, I don't think the Flyers had a million A-plus chances. But in the first period, for the first 10, 12 minutes, when they were winning, they did. And he was a stone wall. And the rest of the game, he was a stone wall. And look, we know the Capitals' defense isn't great. And Brendan Dillon was playing a boatload of minutes too. Yeah, the Orlov goal should never go in. The Farabee one, again, Farabee does have an elite shot. He really does. And he can sniff out goals. If you want to say it shouldn't have, I can't argue with you. But I sometimes will give Farabee a little extra credit. When Dmitry Orlov is scoring on you, it's a problem. And he just walked in and did it too. That was the other thing. Nobody decided to cover him. And that was the theme for the night, Mike. I think the game plan was, let's let them shoot down the middle as long as Carter Hart can see the puck. But the problem when you do that is guys move in and they shoot it 95 miles an hour trying to go top shelf while you've left them open. And that's a showing of the weakness. Like they're basically saying, okay, we're going to give this to you. We're going to cover the rest because that's all we can do.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a little over a month until the trade deadline. And like I said to you when we were talking about this, I mean, this is a situation where Chuck Fletcher, I think he knows what he has to add. I just don't know whether he's gonna be willing enough to pay the price to add it because.
You know what? I do want to stop. Michael Cohen's right. It was 2-1 because the Caps scored a goal, I think, with like 15 seconds to go towards the end of the period. So yes, good catch on that, Michael.
In a division,
I was at the game. All right, block him because he goes, I thought he watched the games. People make mistakes.
Yeah,
block him. Anyhow, go ahead.
Okay. He says one more thing about me, and I'm definitely going to block him, which means he'll say one thing about me right away. Okay, but this is the thing. I think they were caught by surprise, and they shouldn't have been, but I think they were caught by surprise by the Niskanen retirement. They've never addressed it. They didn't address it before the season. They haven't addressed it through the season. Now they have to address it before April 12th. And in a division where you're one of the 5 teams, Pittsburgh, Philly, Islanders, Bruins, Capitals, is going to miss the playoffs, it might be a situation where Chuck Fletcher says, I don't know if it's worth it to go give up a first-round pick and a prospect to get Ekholm or a high draft pick to get David Savard when we don't even know if we're going to get out of the second round.
Right. That is the internal struggle that I believe they're probably having. And right now you can look at this division and say, we're not beating Boston. We would like to beat Boston. We could try and gear up to beat Boston. But really, are we going to beat Boston? The Islanders, they've fared well against them in the past. But right now the Islanders are flying pretty good. And they've got maybe the best goaltending tandem in the league. And so can you get past the Islanders? That's a tough series. Again, that is going to be one where you're going to have to keep the score down. You are not going to outscore the Islanders by 3 or 4 goals a game. So you're going to have to play their style, and that's going to be a problem. The other one is, can they beat the Washington Capitals? The Capitals just beat your team without Tom Wilson. They were not physical in that game. They just beat you. Yes, as Michael Cohen said, Nick Jensen scoring was tough. It was, but they let him walk in. He was another one of those goals where they just let him walk in and shoot for the top. And eventually guys hit that. They have the Flyers have a matchup problem, and it's on defense. And the biggest thing is, no matter how much offense they can generate, when a game, if they are coming from behind in a game, you are always worried, and this has happened a lot this year, where they get the lead and they have the lead for like 2 seconds, and then the other team ties it back up. That's happened at all different times of the game this year, and that's simply because they're having a hard time basically keeping teams from scoring on them. They're having a hard time holding leads. That's really what it is. And so I don't know what they can do to fix it. We've talked about the players they could get, but the rest of the league is going to try and get those players too, Mike. And the problem is with the quarantine period, you almost have to go get them now. Because if you didn't beat Pittsburgh in that other game where they came back, how bad a shape would the Flyers be in now? I mean, Pittsburgh, honestly, and we'll transition a little bit, in that game against the Rangers, literally turned it on and made it a 5-1 game. And I kind of wonder if they did get a word that the Flyers had lost and they could take, sole possession of fourth.
Well, Nat,
that way. And people who covered the game actually just told me it felt that way.
Nat asks about Friedman. I mean, the problem is Friedman was not a top 4 defenseman. He was probably a 6 or 7, so he didn't really address the needs.
But they could have kept him.
They could have kept him. It's just
it was a dumb move.
It was a dumb move, but it was also Friedman was a product of the previous management. So I don't think they valued him as much. I mean, that goes all the time in this league. It's like you have players that are drafted or traded for by previous general managers, and the new group doesn't value them as much. They always treat them that way.
Now, I will agree with Nat in the sense that, and this is something that I told Mike, if you can't really address the top 4 correctly, you could try and bring in someone physical. So would Jarmelson help him? Yeah, he probably would.
Yeah. Because
I think they're missing Radko Gudas, to be honest. I think if they had a more physical presence on the blue line, at least in the third period in tight games, that might help them get by rather than, having that stalwart on the top pairing, which they're seemingly not going to be able to get.
Now, Mike, Mike Doyle should check the schedule again. These teams play each other 8 times, so I don't think the Pens have not played Jersey or Buffalo halfway into the season. It's probably less than that. But if they have a big chunk of games against that's an advantage for them over Philadelphia, because I know Philadelphia's played Jersey and played Buffalo a bunch of times already. So,
Michael Cohen, you're wrong. They didn't. Well, you're not wrong in the sense they needed to free up a contract. They freed up the wrong contract. They should have freed up the contract of Sam Morin, who clearly will never play in the NHL for them.
Well,
not meaningful minutes. He's played little bits of minutes. He is not going to be a player. So,
Russ,
Cohen, hold on. Are you telling me you'd rather have Sam Morin than Mark Friedman? Come on, man.
What his point might be is that nobody was going to claim Sam Morin, and they thought that somebody would claim Friedman so they could open up a space.
Well, that's fine. You find somebody else to get rid of. It's not like they had Andreoff. They had Andreoff up there. They could have sent him down and
or they could have traded. They could. You tell me you could
just trade someone for a pick for 2022.
Right. Exactly.
They could have done a million things to free up that other contract.
Tell me you could get a 7th round pick for Friedman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right.
And Friedman scored a goal against you and an assist, and was a big part in that series. I don't hate Andreoff. I actually think he's okay, but he's really not an A.
Just don't pay attention.
I know. Okay. I like the back and forth sometimes.
The Islanders swept the Sabres this weekend. I don't think they played 3 games in a row. That they were all. It's tough to remember how many because they lost all 3 of them or lost every one 5-2. Yeah, it was 3 games because they was outscored 15-6. It was an interesting weekend for Buffalo because GM Kevin Adams came out on Friday after our show and essentially said, he said he did the Alexander Haig. I'm in control here. I have full authority. And well, yeah, you have full authority, but you haven't done anything yet. You haven't made any trades. You haven't fired the coach. The team is wallowing with the league worst record of 6-14-3. They lost, especially the last 2 games. The one on Saturday where I think it was like 3 goals in the second period after they were leading, and then yesterday 2 goals in like a minute and 1 second. And they actually came back a little bit in the third period and made it a game. And lo and behold, Jeff Skinner scores his first goal of the year. And I just have to read this because I heard somebody mention it like this, and then I had to go and find the text of the quote from Ralph Kruger after the game regarding Skinner's goal. That's certainly something for Jeff Skinner, who has measured his whole career on goals. Getting that 0 out of the way is an encouraging sign moving forward. If that isn't a backhanded compliment, I've never heard one before. It's like, okay, his career is his whole career is measured on goals because he's a goal scorer. That's why. What are you supposed to measure him on?
Listen, in Buffalo, the barn is burning. We know that. They may just ride it out with Kruger simply because nobody could fix this year. Their chemistry is shot. I still believe that when they brought in Taylor Hall and Kruger favored Taylor Hall and started messing around with Skinner, that it messed around with the chemistry of the team. And I don't think they're getting that back this year.
Well, I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday's game, but NBCSN isolated on Hall, and he was out on a shift for 2 minutes.
Oof.
So it's like, that's like 1991 stuff. That's it's supposed to be.
But again, this shows the blind spot that Kruger has for Hall, and it has not done wonders for his team. It has done the opposite, and it's not Taylor Hall's fault.
No,
I just think that this was not the right situation.
Now, Elliot Friedman reported on the weekend on the Hockey Night in Canada set. I always call it Satellite Hot Stove. That shows how old I am. They're going back to John Davidson and Al Strachan. Yep. But that everybody's available. It's a fire sale. It's wide open for business. That was the phrase that they used. I don't think it's fully wide open for business. I don't think you're going to see Jack Eichel move before April.
No, and you won't see Darlene moved.
You won't see Darlene move. You won't see Dylan Cousins move. But the two names that he did mention, and there are more than that, he mentioned Sam Reinhart, and this is the thing. Sam Reinhart is one, and I think he's leading the club with 7 goals. He's like one of the few guys who's actually scored.
One of the only honest hockey players on the team, and by honest, I mean by the way he plays.
But the thing is that they don't want to pay him. He's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. He's making $5.2 million. They know that they're going to have to sign him to a long-term extension next year. Either that or he gets the 1 year qualifying offer. They settle in salary arbitration, and then he goes UFA, and they get nothing for him. So they're going to probably trade him in the summer or trade him before the deadline. And he's a guy who has a year left in the contract, or at least 1 year of control left, and a team might be interested. But
who are you replacing Sam Reinhart with, Mike?
That's the question, because I don't know who. I mean, unless you're clearing him to re-sign Taylor Hall, because you can't trade Skinner away because Skinner's got a no move clause. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. I know that they have $35 million in cap space next year, and that's not including Reinhart, because Reinhart is an RFA. So part of that is re-signing Reinhart, possibly to a long-term extension. But I question. This is a Jacob Trouba situation, Russ.
It really is, yeah.
Where he's got value, but he doesn't have value to the team that he currently is with, because they know he wants to leave. In this case, I don't think Reinhart wants to leave. I think the organization doesn't want to pay him.
Yeah, so, they do need goaltending, but they're going to have to sign a goalie. They're not going to be able to trade for one. Very few goalies are getting traded, or at least ones that want to go to Buffalo.
Well, this is the thing. Okay, I wouldn't sign Carter Hutton if my life depended on it. But Carter Hutton and Ullmark are both UFA.
I know.
So,
they're gonna go get somebody.
Or they re-sign they like Ullmark.
No, they'll re-sign him, but we still have no evidence he could be a starter.
It's probably going to cost him at least $4 million on a long-term deal.
But the other thing I want to mention is, so right now at this pace, Dylan Cousins is on pace for 12 points. Mm-hmm. How successful has this season been to put him into this situation on this tire fire of a team? Mm-hmm. And even though he's playing and he's skating and he's presumably learning, he is going to come away with 12 points. Boy, that's really straddling the line of player development, isn't it?
And they were playing him up until like this weekend. They were playing him mostly second, third line. This weekend, I'm pretty sure they put him on a line with Hall and Eichel. Which he didn't get any points, or I don't think he did. Colin Miller got the other goal besides Skinner in the game on Sunday, so I don't think Cousins got any points. But we talked to Joe Yerdon on the Off the Post show.
Yerds, yeah.
Yeah, Yerds. And he said that the development right now in the Sabre organization, like Jack Quinn, their first round pick, he's down in Rochester and he's 18 years old, and it's too much for him. So
he's not physically ready.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Cousins is physically ready. He got into a fight, and I think he's willing, but again, I don't know whether this model is successful in terms of developing the player.
I'm going to go by the last few years. It has not been successful.
No. And they've they have forced him into this situation.
Basically, everybody they draft, they basically put right into action if he's a top 5 pick.
It's the Edmonton Oilers development plan. 18 years old, throw him in there. How did that work for Nail Yakupov?
Yeah. Now, again, I'm just not a big fan of it, and at some point, and there's no slight in this, and there's really no slight. And before someone says it, I know Cousins is 7, whatever. I'm just saying as an example, a top 5 kind of pick, because he could have gone top 5. But my answer to this is, you know what? There is no shame in putting him down in the AHL and letting him be successful again and letting him play in every situation, top power play, all of that, instead of having to deal with this team.
Right. And the situation is right now, I heard Paul Hamilton, the Sabre reporter for the local for WGR radio, say that the organization philosophy might have been let Kruger finish out the year, but basically the way they mailed it in over the weekend, you really can't at this point. You can't allow this to go much longer.
I don't know. I mean,
now the thing I said to you is that there is nobody in the organization right now with any kind of head coaching experience. Seth Appert, who they hired out of the U.S. Development, is, I think he's got about 10 games worth of about 10 games of pro head coaching experience. One name that I didn't remember that might be an option as an interim for the rest of the year is Jay McKee.
Oh yeah, okay.
Who coached Kitchener, and that at least you bring in a former Sabre.
These guys would learn how to block shots if nothing else.
Jeez. Let's hope they don't learn to get infections.
Right.
But besides Reinhart, the UFAs on the team are Taylor Hall, are Eric Stahl, and Brandon Montour, and the goalies. And I don't think the goalies are going to go anywhere, especially Allmark, who's injured right now. But I wrote today my Leaf piece for Hockey Buzz regarding players that the Leafs might be interested in before the deadline. And I know they don't have a lot of cap space, so they're going to have to be inventive. But teams like Vegas were inventive at the deadline last year, and they were able to get Robin Leonard, who was a $5 million goaltender. One of the names is Stahl, and the thing I look at, because I talked to somebody and said, "Oh, he's washed up. He's only got 8 points." I'm like, okay, he didn't want to come to Buffalo.
Right.
The speculation out there was, he's from Thunder Bay. He was building a house in Thunder Bay. He had an agreement, a verbal agreement with the previous GM in Minnesota, Fenton, I believe.
Yeah.
And that he wouldn't be traded. And then Guerin comes in and he trades him.
Right.
So, that's his right. He didn't have a no move clause. There was I think he had a moderate no trade and a modified no trade, and Buffalo was not on the no trade list. So they follow the letter of the contract. But I mean, Buffalo is a terrible team, and you're not getting a lot of effort, I think, out of a lot of players, Stahl included. So I think there's more there.
Yeah.
What is there? Now, the question is whether, they would trade him to Toronto. They're not in the same division, at least this year. And whether Toronto is interested, I don't know. But I think the parts fit. And Roger in the chat mentions Nick Foligno because Steve Simmons mentioned him in his column on Sunday. Problem is that a couple things. Foligno's got a no move clause.
Mm-hmm.
He's the team captain in Columbus. He's got a $5.5 million cap hit. The cap hit is probably the least of the problems because, again, you can move around that and them retain 50%. And if you trade a player back in the deal that has salary, like an Alex Kerfoot or something like that, then, that might make some sense, or it would fit.
Yeah.
But Foligno's got a no move clause. He's the team captain in Columbus. And if they're talking about a new deal, why would he waive the no move? I don't think he would.
No, he probably wouldn't. I know everybody in the chat room wants them to get Ricard Gromborg. The problem is Kevin Adams can't afford to do that because Kevin Adams barely has.
Didn't they talk to him?
Yeah, but I'm saying to hire him as a head coach now,
right,
after this debacle, If Bromborg comes in and he's out of his depth, and I think he's a decent coach, but I don't know what he'll do in the NHL.
Right.
That'll cost him his job. So guys usually he's got one hire, Kevin Adams, and I don't think he's going to hire a guy from not in the NHL to do it. I think he already reached out with Kruger. It's not working. He's going to have to go a lot safer next time.
Well, okay. Consider the coaches that are out there, that will be out there next year, and
including Torts in that, because
that's exactly where I'm going, because I don't think the guy of the available coaches that I think would be the best fit for Buffalo would be a guy like Bruce Boudreau. I don't think Gallant would be. Gallant probably, even though Gallant took an expansion team and got them to the Stanley Cup final in 1 year, I think he fits better with a team that's got sort of more on hand.
Or does he fit with any team, Mike? I think we have to start looking at
Gallant
is getting passed over and over and over again. He was given a second chance. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but you have to admit he's not on anybody's hot list right now.
Maybe, and I don't think Babcock is either, because of
But I think Babcock might get hired before Gallant. That's the funny thing.
Because Babcock won a Stanley Cup. He won 2 gold medals.
Yeah.
If Darryl Sutter got another crack, then probably Babcock is. But Babcock has got a lot of baggage, and especially
let's not put Darryl Sutter in the he didn't do anything wrong, Darryl.
No. I'm just saying.
I just want to put him in the same.
No. I'm talking about in terms of age and in terms of a gap of time in between when he was coach. I mean, Babcock, his baggage is, he his interpersonal relations with some of his players.
Well put, Mike. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, I mean the mental gymnastics. I mean, a lot of stuff. Whereas Boudreau, he likes to play wide open.
Mm-hmm.
He's an ebullient type of guy.
Boudreau would be good if they kept Taylor Hall. Then I could see having Boudreau come in. But of course, Boudreau won Seattle. You know why? Because he could hold on to that job for like 4 years, because no one's going to yell at him if they're not doing well after a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Seattle, it could be Rob Brind'Amour, because Brind'Amour still hasn't signed a contract with
which is very interesting.
Yes. But
Ron Francis looming and lurking, that could be a killer thing for Carolina. And let's face it, I mean, Tom Dundon's not going to pay top dollar for Rod Brind'Amour. He doesn't pay top dollar for anything.
Yeah, exactly. And Claude Julien is not a fit in Buffalo.
No.
He probably, he's going to go to a team that is more of a finished product. But a guy like Boudreau, if he doesn't go to Seattle, would be a fit. And maybe Torts, because really Torts could come in.
Torts in Buffalo. I could see him hanging out at the Anchor Bar.
No.
Oh no, definitely, Mike. He's an Anchor Bar kind of guy.
He's not that stupid. He doesn't have a death wish. He does not have a death wish. All right, we'll take some questions in the chat here, but I just want to touch on a couple.
I was going to answer one question in the chat before I forget. I think the NHL Network did something on Luke Hughes, so I'm being asked about him. He's really good. I think he will be a top 10 pick. I love his vision. He gets down the ice quickly. He's smart. He's got the Hughes IQ, which is definitely very high in the hockey circles. Could be a little better offensively, but that might come over time. Has a good shot. I don't think it's elite or anything like that, but I think it's effective. So I do think Luke Hughes is a good package. There's things to work on for him, like intensity in the offensive zone, like a little bit of physicality, those kinds of things. But no, I like Luke Hughes. He's a really good prospect.
Yeah, and I'm just somebody asked what's wrong with the Anchor Bar. I'm giving you in the chat. I'm giving you the lowdown on the Anchor Bar, and they can't sue me because I'm telling the truth.
Mike's given the 411.
I speak the truth. I'm a truth teller.
Right.
Okay. The Lightning beat the Blackhawks 6-3. The game was marred by a hit by Connor Murphy on Steven Stamkos, which I believe it got a double minor or a 5-minute major.
I think it was a 5-minute major. I was looking out of the side of my eye because I had the game on behind me. But while we're doing the show, I think it was a 5-minute.
Yeah. Now, there is some question about whether Murphy will get suspended. This is in no way in the same category as Wilson, but
No.
it may get a one
He
or
might get a game, maybe.
yeah, because it looked like he hit him like high chest here, and then it went up into the jaw.
Yeah, it definitely hit the jaw and the head snap. There's no question.
So, I mean, that's Esmer says torts will always go to the Charlie the Butcher in Cheektowaga. Great for great beef on whack.
I just will say this though about this Chicago game. There are teams that are definite Stanley Cup contenders, but their defense is not a Stanley Cup contender. And I think they were up 2-0 in this game, or maybe even 3-0, and then they didn't score again.
Well, let's just say this.
And Tampa, is starting to show that they have the forwards that could really put the pressure on their defense. And look, Chicago's goalie has been really good, but he is not truly NHL tested. So there's going to be ups and downs with him too.
The Stanley Cup for the Blackhawks is to make the playoffs, because nobody in their right mind thought the Blackhawks were to make the playoffs without Taves, without Dotch, with Colin Delia and Malcolm Subban in goal, and we didn't know about Lankinen. But they're really overachieving right now. I mean, they're sort of like the little engine that could right now with guys like Janmark and Suter and Kurashev. I mean, I'm sort of rooting for them to make the playoffs because nobody expected them to.
No, I get it. They were up 2-0, and then maybe 3-0. They scored 2 in the first. I think they may have been up by 3. Yeah, they were up 3-0. So, I mean, that's a game where Tampa just shows what a real, true Stanley Cup contender is. And even though the cap space is there for the Hawks, I wouldn't go too deep. I mean,
they may go rentals. They may
just go rentals and worry about it for next year.
Now, Esmer asked, what's our view of the recent play of Pavel Zacha? Zacha factored in the Devils' only goal in the 1-0 win over the Bruins. And we can answer the question about Zacha, but just to mention this about the Bruins. The Bruins, with Carlo out, and we don't know how long he'll be out, they're short 3 defensemen. Lawson's hurt, he's hurt, and I think Kevin Miller's hurt. And there's a lot of question about their offense besides the, whatever they call that ridiculous Pasternak, Bergeron, Marchand line. They're not getting a lot of consistent scoring from the second and third lines, and their power play is not producing. And when you're depending all on 5-on-5 on that one line,
yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, in that division, it's going to be tough for them. Now, that's a question of whether Don Sweeney at the deadline is going to go out and look for some more offense.
He will. He's got no choice. He's going to have to. Answering about Zacha, I think he's been building strength over the last couple of years. He is in that power forward mold where sometimes it takes time. I have noticed him going to the net more. I have noticed him playing better in the dirty areas. If he gets around the net, he's a dangerous guy. He was always going to be that. But getting to the net is a hard thing. Ask Capocacco for the Rangers, who hasn't really mastered how to score down low yet. So I think Zacha's doing really well, and I think people who talked about him being a bust, were way premature on that.
Now, the Hurricanes won over the Panthers 4-2, and I'm just checking the box score to see if Nedeljkovic was in goal again, because I know that he has been playing well of late, and if he starts to sort of take control and get full work with them, then maybe they're not going to be going out for a goaltender at the deadline. I mean, right now they have Mrazek is injured, and it's Reimer and Nedeljkovic, and of course my computer is freezing up.
Right. I'm going to go this far. What happened with Cam Ward happens once in a lifetime to goalies. Okay. I like Nedeljkovic. I've seen him a lot. I've seen him in the AHL. I've seen him in juniors. I've seen him with the U.S. team. I've seen him all over the place. He could be an adventure too, with rebounds and otherwise.
Yeah, it was Reimer.
You're not winning a Stanley Cup with him this year. It's not going to be a magic pill like it was with Cam Ward over Martin Gerber. It's not going to happen. So if they're smart, they will still go and get a goalie, and this time not fall short of doing it. last year everything was in line for them. Don't you agree, Mike? It was all there.
Yes. Yeah, and they just, I mean, they ran into the team that they couldn't beat, which is Boston. But maybe they could have beaten them if they had a goaltender. I mean, right. James Reimer got Bruins disease.
All it takes is a little doubt. You know, you win one of those games, maybe you get a shutout, and maybe Boston all of a sudden is like, all right, they're not the pushovers they used to be.
Yeah, I mean, James Reimer, you know, he goes into epileptic fits when he sees the smoked bee. So, you know, it's like you just don't. I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can win. I think you can maybe win a round with Mrazek if Mrazek is healthy and gets hot. But I don't think you're going to go deep in the playoffs with any of the three goaltenders. But maybe they're just not willing to pay the price for a Kemper or an upgrade in goal. And I don't see much of an opportunity to upgrade in goal in free agency other than maybe Freddie Anderson. Because he's, you know, and there was reports. There were reports before the season that if the Leafs were trading Anderson, that Carolina was the interested party. So, I mean, we'll see if that's the case, you know, going forward. But right now, I mean, I don't think they're going to go deep in the playoffs without help. Mike Doyle asks, we'll take some questions in here over the next 15 minutes. Mike Doyle says, Russ and Mike, Pittsburgh has 10 healthy defensemen, 6 left-handed. Who are they going to trade? Who are they going to trade to get a forward? Well, Dumoulin's hurt right now, so I think that probably rules him out.
Yeah, and I don't think they can afford to either. Like, they need him, but yeah, I'm with you.
Cody Ceci has no value since he's a rental, a UFA, so they're not going to trade Marino.
No.
Well, I mean, if they could get some sucker to take Mike Matheson, go ahead. But
I'm going to give you a long shot projection here, totally off the cuff. What if there's still a team out there that needs a sacrificial goalie, and they trade Casey DeSmith because you could expose him?
Yeah, then they need a goaltender to expose.
No, they have Emil Larmi, who's a 24-year-old guy out of Finland. He's played a little bit in Wilkes-Barre. Look, if it comes down to Emil Larmi, your season's over anyhow. So Tristan Jarry is the guy. DeSmith would be a guy that you could trade at the deadline and get that extra piece because, again, Larmi could play 4 or 5 games down the stretch. He is not going to kill you, but you might be able to get something because there's probably a team out there, Mike, that would like a sacrificial goalie.
Yeah, maybe. But, I mean, this is the thing. Like, Dumoulin and Riikola are hurt. Ruedel and Friedman don't have much value.
Friedman's going to stay there. I think.
Right, but I'm just saying they don't on the trade market. They don't have much value.
No, that's true.
They're not going to move Marino. I mean, do you think they're going to move Marcus Peterson? I don't think so. Yeah, so I mean, they would love to give away Matheson, Mike. So I don't think that I don't even think
they can afford to give up Matheson. I don't think they're trading any of those guys. I think it's going to be a very minor piece that they move for a guy that somebody is just dumping for salary. I honestly think that's what Hextall is going to look for, and Burke's going to look for.
Right. Roger asks, what is the value of players like Nylander and Kerfoot and Dermott on the trade market? Okay. Nylander, they're not going to move until at the earliest this summer. They're not going to mess with the core group.
Right.
Where they are, right? They're first in the league right now. They're not going to do that. Kerfoot, I just wrote about this today, with the move of Engvall into third line center, him playing really well with Mikheyev and Hyman on a checking line. They've moved Kerfoot to left wing. He can play left wing. I think he's more valuable at center. I think he's a better center, but maybe they don't think so. I mean, I think the thing is that they love the size that Engvall. He's 6'5" and he can skate like the wind. Right. So it might make Kerfoot expendable. The other thing is,
well, has 2021 Mike talked to 2020 Mike? Because 2020 Mike did not want to trade Kerfoot at all.
I still don't want to trade Kerfoot.
Okay.
I still don't want to trade.
You have talked about it,
but I think what's going to happen here, Russ, is the fact that Zach Hyman is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, and they look at the 2 years left on Kerfoot at $3.5 million and say, well, if we got Engvall who can play third line center, then that $3.5 million is a luxury. and we can trade that away and put that money towards Hyman, who I think is one of the key players on the team. Dermott, another situation where I don't think they're going to trade him this year, because then you have 6 defensemen with Mikko Lehtinen. Rasmus Sandin is broke his foot in the first AHL game, so they really have no depth on defense. In fact, I was going to write tomorrow about them going out and getting themselves a depth defenseman before the deadline, because they have one injury, and they're playing Mikko Lehtinen 15, 16 minutes a night in the playoffs, and he's still pretty much an unproven commodity. So I don't know. Now, the thing is, Dermott might be the guy they lose to Seattle in expansion, because they can only protect 3 or 4 defensemen, depending on what if they go 8 skaters in one or 7-3 in one. So maybe they trade Dermott at the deadline, but they would have to get a defenseman back. So I don't know if how that works. So
well, all right. So Chris Liz is somebody I know, Mike. He sent in a question saying that David Pagnato is reporting that the Islanders are looking at Brett Connolly and would trade Leo Komarov for him. That may work, because Komarov would be a Q kind of guy. I could see that. And I could see the Islanders. Brett Connolly has still shown that he could score some tough goals. He's not, the goal scorer he was in junior or anything like that, but he has shown that he's perform in the playoffs too, Mike. Brett Connolly had some good playoff runs. So, could be a trade that could happen.
The salaries are comparable. The only thing is that Connolly's got an extra year. Komarov is $3 million next year, this year and next year.
Yeah, but the Islanders could absorb that. That's no
Connolly is $3.5 million for this year and 2 years for further. I think he's got more in the tank than Komarov.
Yes.
Komarov is he's from Estonia, but he plays internationally for Finland, and there is a heavy Finn sort of network in Florida with Barkov and a couple other players. So yeah, I could see that. I could see that work. I don't know how much Komarov has left. I love Uncle Leo, but I just don't know.
Well, they're not going to expect any kind of goals or anything out of him. They just want him to be dirty on the ice. Let's face it.
Yeah. A professional disturber, yes. Yeah. Zach asks, Kekalainen said they're shopping for a center. Who makes sense in Tort's system, or do they sell Foligno, Savard, Nash? Okay, like I said, what I wrote today is if Foligno is amenable to moving, that the Leafs, Kerfoot might be a fit there, because they've been looking for center help ever since they traded Dubois. He's not a big body center. He's a quick, smart, speedy center. So that would make a little bit of sense. They're 5 points behind 4th place in the Central.
Yeah, but with 4-point games all the time, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, they can make it up. They can make it up if they got hot.
Yeah. Davey's asking about Connor Garland. He's their top scorer. He is a young player. He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
I am just going to come out and say it. If they trade someone like Connor Garland, then the Arizona Coyotes have they basically have no future in this league.
They're going to trade him because he's going to actually cost money next year. So it's like, he's making less than $1 million now, and he's
scoring on Arizona. And understand the job that Rick Tocchet is doing there. Garland, 22 points. Keller, 18 points. Dvorak, 17. Chychrun, 17. Kessel, 16. Schmaltz, 16. Osterley, 11. And then you just got a bunch of guys.
Well, I mentioned Lawson.
Lawson's only got 9 himself.
I mentioned Lawson Krause in the piece that I wrote. And Lawson Krause scored 15 goals last year in an 82-game schedule. He's got 1 goal this year in 21 games. And they paid him over $1.5 million on a new contract.
They're in – I want to be nice and say they're in a transitional year, Mike.
Yes. By transition, you mean they're ruining Barrett Hayton, they're ruining Lawson Krause. Who aren't they ruining?
It's really I don't like what's going on there. I'll be honest.
Zach says TSN's Travis Yost, who used to write for Hockey Buzz, wrote how the 2015 draft class is dominating the NHL this year. Which is the best draft class of the 2010s? I think that one is. That's David Eichel, Hannafin, Marner, Strome in top 5.
Yeah, I know. Hold on.
No, I know you know, but I'm saying I'm just.
No, I get it. Hold on.
Now, could you say 2016? I think Puljujarvi's failure in the third or fourth overall sort of knocks it down a little.
Yeah, there's another though that I like a lot. Hold on, I have to find it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, 2016, and let's just, we know that drafts are more than just the top 5, but okay, top 10 in 2016 is Matthews, Laine, Dubois, Puljujarvi, Juolevi. See, that kills it right there. Juolevi hasn't established himself, and Puljujarvi is playing decently for the first time this year.
Right.
Chuck is great, so he probably should have been fourth. Keller is okay, I think, but you said he's being limited by the system that he's in. Alex Nylander was a complete bust with Buffalo. Maybe he can rejuvenate his career with Chicago, but he's had an injury this year. Sergachev, really good defenseman with Tampa, and then Tyson Yost, 10th overall.
Yeah, one more minute.
I mean, Matthews and Laine are premium talents, and Tkachuk is.
I don't know. Are we still including Laine in that?
He's a scorer. I mean, he's not a failure.
Right.
I mean,
I will say this. Maybe at this moment today, he's right. I'm going to tell you though that 2017 is trending up. It is. Patrick's back and healthy. Maybe by next year he's doing better again.
You got 2 Norris Trophy capable defensemen in Heiskanen and Makar,
and Glass is having a nice year now,
and a superstar in Pettersson at 5.
Superstar Pettersson, Gabe Velarde, I believe, is a factor now. Netchis is now a factor. Suzuki is definitely a factor. Middlestad, I still think could be a player. So let's see.
He's starting to play better. Cal Wood is up with Tampa.
Brandstrom is going to be there. Valimaki is already there.
Robert Thomas.
Vakanenen's getting there. Norris is starting to play. Yeah, you have Thomas. Heedle's starting to play more. Yamamoto's starting to come through. This is a developing draft here. Ottinger a couple years. Frost.
I mean, the thing is that we can pretty much say now, or look at that draft, the 15 draft. You're 6 years out to say, most likely what the players are now is what they are. They're established. So McDavid, Eichel are 2 of the league's top 5 centers. Strome is a usable second line guy. Marner is a star winger. Hannafin, I think, is a top 4 defenseman, but not what people thought he was going to be. And we know Zacha is starting to come around. Provorov is really good. Werenski is really good. Rantanen.
Yeah, I could give you 5 third-round studs from the 17 draft, and they're not all proven yet. Max Gildon, who's starting to prove himself in the AHL. Michael DiPietro, who I still think will be a factor down the line for Vancouver. Morgan Geekie, who started to show something last year, but he's on a stacked team. Riley Walsh and David Farrance could be really solid defensemen in this league, all in the 3rd round.
And Tarasov could be the Blue Jackets goaltender in a year.
He could be. Mikey Anderson's in the 4th round. Drake Batherson, who's starting to come on, is in the 4th round. This is a heck of a draft, Mike. Sebastian Aho, the other one, not as much. He's probably starting to fade down a little. This is a heck of a draft, though.
Not the great Sebastian Aho with
the Islander one.
The Islander one.
And the other one, Alex Formenton, I still think is a heck of a player for Ottawa, but that's going to take some time. You have Volkov in this draft, who is starting to break in. Jason Robertson, who is definitely breaking in. I'm telling you, Anderson Dolan, who is starting to – the breadth of players in 17, I think, will overtake 15 over time.
Yeah. Now, I think I looked at the schedule. I think it was 5 games tonight. Let me just look at it again here. We're almost done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games tonight on the schedule. Vegas and Minnesota on the NHL Network. We have Blues and Sharks, Ottawa and Edmonton, Arizona and Colorado, Montreal, Vancouver, and the LA Kings at Anaheim. So,
I might watch Kings in Anaheim, and I probably will watch that Vegas game. Those are the games I'm probably focusing on tonight to sort of see where guys are at. Like I said, I've been really happy with what I'm seeing out of Cody Glass now. He's starting to get more time. He's getting some power play time. He's filling out body-wise. He's 21. He's got 9 points in 17 games. Remember, in the end, when the old guys are gone, he is probably the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
He's their first big guy that they got. Could be a star in the future. And by the time his star rises, some of those other guys will be out of there, probably like Fleury and whatever.
And he's the only one of their initial flurry of draft picks that they haven't traded. They traded Brandstrom. They traded Suzuki.
Yeah.
He's the only one left.
He's a big centerman with good hands. It's, you don't get rid of those guys.
No.
And that's why, and honestly, that's why the Kings have stuck with Gabe Velarde. He is a big, strong centerman with a great shot. You just don't put those guys out there.
Exactly. All right. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.